Hey guys, what's up? It's Wes. Hope you're doing well. This video is going to be a fun one. It's one I've been meaning to make for a while, and it is a cheat sheet method on a simple thing you can do to really get the full impact of a master study. This works for any artist in any type of art, whether it's digital art or illustration or graphic design or kind of whatever your visual interest is. It's something I learned way back in the day in art school. And it's something that's always stuck with me. And it's a super fast, super easy way to get everything you need out of a master study in like a fraction of the time. Yes, indeed. So let's set the old clocks back 20 years. Oh my God. It's been 20 years since I went to art school. You can probably tell by the gray in the beard. But anyway, this was a method of learning about master studies. So before we get too far into this, let's talk about what a master study is. So in an atelier or art school setting, a master study is usually taking an entire piece or kind of a slice of a piece, like a little portion of the painting, and doing an exact one-to-one replica of it, the best that you can be, make it the most convincing, make it look as exact as you can. And what this is supposed to do is it teaches you kind of about the method that the artist was using. It can let you kind of experiment with your methods to see how they can more entwine with those that you're kind of looking up to, especially if you're studying the old masters like Caravaggio or something like that. It's really important on how you stack paint and what are your layers and how long do you let it dry or set and settle, your edge control. So there's a lot that goes into these master studies. The only bad thing is master studies take forever. They take forever. They take sometimes hundreds of hours, which is about the same amount of time that the original painting took. And at the end of it, you just have a knockoff of a painting that already exists. So there's a lot of kind of trepidation in really jumping into a master study. I do highly recommend them, because it does teach some fantastic fundamentals and you get a new appreciation for kind of solving the same problems that your favorite artist did. But in art school, we learned of a way to literally take something that could take 50 or 60 hours and condense it down to an hour and a half. It was just as effective. In some ways, it was more effective. You end up learning more from the artist. You end up remembering what you did from the artist, so you can actually hold a better conversation with other, art collectors or other painters whenever you're studying the styles of these other kind of masters. You just retain more information, and you can do this over and over no matter who the master that you're studying is. This can work for sketches, for watercolor, for oil painting, acrylics, anything that you're really working on. And simply put, you're going to paint a sphere. Just a circle, just the old circle, three-dimensional, has a bounce light, it has the highlights, it has a shadow. That's all you're going to do. But it's going to be part of the painting that you're doing a master study of. You're actually going to add in the sphere to make it look like that master painted that sphere into it from the original. Like originally, that it's always existed, that sphere has always been there, part of the composition. It's going to have the same brush strokes. It's going to have the same color palette. It's going to have the same brush work, edges, the same way the shadows work, the bounce light, what are the colors, how's the paint mingling? All of that has to work. It has to look verbatim like the master put it in there to begin with. So you're basically painting inside of a painting. Now it seems like that wouldn't be much of anything, that you could do it pretty quick and it wouldn't do a lot, but you're going to be amazed at how difficult this is. So what we're going to do, I'm actually going to do a master study using Rebelle 7 Pro. And really, you can use whatever you like. You can even do this, with traditional artwork as well. You can do a printout, you can do a transfer, all that stuff, and you can really get this going however you feel the most comfortable. But I'll be using Rebelle 7 Pro, and it's going to be a master study of this Joaquin Sorolla piece. I've been meaning to do a master study of Sorolla for like 2.5 years now, and this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So I will be adding a sphere to this painting and trying my best to make it look like Sorolla had this sphere in the composition from the get-go. Now, there's a lot of things, a lot of nuance that we're going to talk about, but I want you to see it firsthand. And we're going to have it on its own separate layer. That way we can easily turn off and on the sphere. That way you can see the original, then what the sphere looks like, and vice versa. We're going to keep doing that. And I'm going to talk about some tips and tricks, things to remember, and why this is such a beneficial exercise. So without further ado, let's hop on over to Rebelle. Let's open up that Sorolla and get cracking at what I hope is going to be a pretty successful master study. All right, so before we get into the time-lapse part, I did want to show some of the settings that I have for the piece. So right here, I have my visual settings open for Rebelle. Let me close this out real quick. To get to here, if you go down to your layers panel, you can hover over here where it says visual settings, or you can use the F12, I think is the default hotkey. So go ahead, hit that. You're gonna notice that right now I have my impasto depth set at about 3. Anything more than that, in my opinion, things start looking a little artificial. Not in a bad way. If the whole painting's done with a higher impasto, it looks good. But remember, our whole idea is to try to match what we have as far as a master study. And if you have, if you look, you can see little bits of the impasto here from the actual. So this is the Joaquin Sorolla piece that we're going to be doing. Let's see, I'm going to butcher that pronunciation, but I'm just going to call it Hunting Shellfish, the beach in Valencia. And beautiful piece. Love it. I mean, all of Sorolla's work, especially kind of the beach stuff, has always really appealed to me. We're going to talk more about that whenever we actually start the painting, but we have the impasto here, and you can see a little bit right here. You know, there's some, but it's not, you see some of the strokes here, but it's not overbearing. So that's why I want to keep the impasto depth under the oils and acrylics down to about a 3. Anything less than that, you can't quite see it. Anything more than this, and it gets a little overbearing. I also have nanopixel on. So nanopixel is something that's in Rebelle 7 Pro. And this is basically the upscaler, up resolution, to where you can basically export something 4 times the size without losing any clarity. But there's two of the main, there you go, deals right here. Your paper texture. So with these, this is kind of opposite of what I would normally think. Normally you would think the paper texture would be like the canvas, and then the paint texture would be kind of like the paint stroke texture, but it's actually reverse. So paper texture is actually how the paint responds to the paper. Your paint texture is how does the texture overlay on top of the paint. I usually keep this around 5 because you can see it. See the little here. If we crank it up to like 10, it's way too much, right? It's just, it almost looks like it's cross-stitched or something, which is cool, but it's not what we're after. But anything lower, like at a 4, I almost can't tell that it's there anymore. And maybe that's what you're after, but I actually enjoy the little bit of, like, to me, this looks really convincing. If you zoom out a little bit, like, especially like around here, I think it looks really, really good. So yes, these are the main settings that I have. So paper texture around a 4, paint texture around a 5. At some point during the painting. If something's not quite working the way I think, I might change some of these, but this is about what I'm going to start with. This is usually my defaults whenever I work within Rebelle. Also, I'm going to be making a new layer and have pigment mode turned on, so that way I get the true kind of blending of these brushes, make it look a little more realistic, a little more controlled, as it would be with like oils. And that's something on Rebelle 7 Pro as well. And the last part is I actually imported this into a color set. So to do that, this is also part of Rebelle 7 Pro, I believe. If you click on the button, color set, create color set from image file, and then you can pick how many colors. I always pick 36. I just like having my colors picked here. That way, if I don't want to just color pick from the image, I can just kind of eyeball what I would like the look of over here in the color set. And then something I also do is I click over here, I go to color set, order by, and I do lightness. So that's why it's by value. So because I have 36 right here, I have 12 per row, and it's very easy to break it up in between highlights, midtones, and shadow. Okay. So just a quick deal. Those are some of my tips to do these. But yeah, see that nice canvas that's right there, and you can still see the good brush fidelity. So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's start on this time lapse. I just wanted to show you guys sort of what my settings were, what the thought process was about importing the image, and kind of what the overall mood is going to be and kind of what the goal is. So yeah, beautiful Joaquin Sorolla piece. Let's get after it. All right, so let's get started with the real deal here. This may be more of kind of a stream of consciousness as I remember what I was looking at and what I was thinking about whenever I was doing this study. But yeah, overall, I just kept it to about an hour. So this is going to be sped up a little bit, but it should still be relatively easy to follow regarding, you know, what brushes did I pick and what was the technique that I used and things like that. So hopefully it's easy to follow. But if you do have questions about any of it, hit me up with a comment and I'll be happy to help. But I want to talk a little bit about Joaquin Sorolla and what I learned from this master's study. And like, as I was working, the things I was noticing. So hopefully what this will do is help guide your mindset whenever you try this exercise for the first time, or even like the fifth time, you know, no matter how many times you do this, hopefully this type of mindset is going to help get you the results that you're after. So the first thing I noticed really was how opaque or how thick the highlights are in Joaquin Sorolla stuff. So I know in oil painting, and especially in things like watercolor, you want to keep your shadows fairly transparent, meaning you can like glaze in darker, you know, tones or what have you into a shadow area, but you really want to keep your highlights very thick and very kind of high chroma. You know, you don't want to mix too much in them. You just want to keep very maybe short, choppy brush strokes on there. You could do some longer brush strokes, but the thing with Sorolla, and this is definitely a thing I noticed as I was working, there's a lot of smaller brush strokes in here. And especially if you see kind of where that, I don't know what it's called. It's like ocean moss grass or something. The stuff that's in the water and in the tide, but it's not, is it crabgrass? I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you know, kind of that brown, slight diagonal that's behind the person is very small, repetitive, like filbert brush strokes. And I really wanted to hone in on kind of the short choppiness of this, but there's a lot of confidence in it too. So it's not like he's just sort of sketching around and doesn't quite know what's going on. He knows exactly where he's putting his brush, but having that amount of slight color nuance and like slight differences of value and maybe warmth in some of those brush strokes, you can only do that with shorter, choppier brush strokes. Like this is paint on top of paint on top of paint, you know. The nice thing is this painting looks way more kind of alla prima, like all on one layer, more than other, maybe more advanced Sorolla stuff. I would consider this one kind of a nice, it's a beautiful painting, but it's also kind of a sketch at the same time. Just a lot going on with this. One of the main things, so you may wonder why I didn't, you know, if we're going to make a sphere, why would I not use kind of the marquee tool, put it on the circle or the oval setting, and like draw the oval with the, you know, dancing ants around it or whatever. That way it has a perfect round selection. And something that I noticed in this painting in particular, but anything Sorolla, the shapes aren't very exact. So I wanted to stay freehand, because I think there's a lot of like, even if there's like little small divots or the circle's not exactly all the way round, that's actually not as important as getting the right consistency for like the light and the bounce light. And the bounce light especially on this one. If you see the dress of the young girl here, she has that sunlight, that nice kind of like a triangle of that warmer, you know, sunlight kind of piercing through the cloth, but it also gives us the form of the legs and the hips underneath. So it's really helpful, but also you can see how, you know, she's hunched over with the stick, maybe making a design in the wet sand, but you can see the warmth coming from the ground, actually warmer than the sky above. Even though it's a sunny day, even though, you know, yeah, sure, the sky's blue and you have the water and everything like that, you know, it's still a warm light that's hitting on top. But because of the sand and because that light is bouncing, it's radiating that orange kind of back onto the upper kind of sternum and the belly. And it's a really interesting thing. So I want to make sure I grab that on the sphere, because that's one of the things when you're doing these master studies, it's going to give you all the answers. So it's like, oh, well, what color is the bounce light? Well, really the only thing that's getting bounce light is going to be the figure. So if you check what color that is and you use that color, it's going to adhere better to the painting itself. I know it sounds really obvious, but the first few times you try this, if you're anything like me, it's going to like unlock part of your brain. You're going to be like, oh, that's what the bounce light is. Like you're going to know these terms and you're going to study these terms and stuff, but until you actually kind of put brush to the canvas, adding something to a painting that already exists, that's whenever all of it has to come out, you know, correct out of the gate. So you have to be a little more aware of what you're looking at. And I think there's a lot of power there, because you have to be a little more confident in what you're doing. You have to really, it's one of those, what's the old saying for like engineers and, you know, woodworking and stuff is like, what, measure twice, cut once. It's that. You want to look and you want to be like, okay, what, not colors am I looking at, but what's my temperature look like? You know, the warms from the bounce light, and then you have the slight coolerness of the actual figure and her dress and even her skin tone. Her skin tone's purple. Like that's a pretty cool skin tone because she's primarily in shadow. Her dress, the way she's kind of over, the dress is catching the light, blocking it from her legs. And then also her arm, that one side of her arm that's holding the stick, the one side of her arm is getting a little bit of that warm light, but it's really just that one hit of light on the forearm. But the rest of it's fairly purple, right? And then Sorolla did something smart where he noticed that kind of wet sand purple and the skin purple, pretty similar. Now the skin purple on the forearm is a little, it's a little darker in value, so it could still be separated, but you're going to notice the softer blue that's kind of silhouetting her arm, her hand on her, kind of on her thigh or on her knee, I guess. and then the light whites of the dress catching, genius, because this allows that arm to really be more pronounced. It can be a sharper shape, but even with that sharp shape, there's still some divots, there's still some brush smudge. It's not an exact straight line. Like, I wouldn't use a ruler for anything on here. Hell, even the stick that she's using to draw is not a straight line. It's not straight, but it doesn't need to be. This is about the impression of it, the emotion. And that's what I needed to make sure I got with the sphere. It doesn't have to be the exact right shape. Even the bounce light could be slightly off. The shadow could be in slightly the wrong place. It doesn't quite matter. It doesn't necessarily make it easier. It just makes it a little more interesting, because now I have to make some decisions in the same way, hopefully, that Soroya had to make some decisions. Some random decisions that I saw is, I don't know if you noticed, with that crabgrass or whatever that is, if you look where the light catches it as it's coming closer to the figure, he put in some pinks in there, which is really interesting, because you think it would just be, oh, it's warm, it's sand, it's going to be, it's going to be a yellow, it's going to be a brown, it's going to be a light ochre, it's going to be something like, but no, it's pink. And that pink ties in with the headscarf on the figure. Really interesting stuff. It's like even some of the small details and nuances on this dress are incredible because it's using that pink. Now, of course, we're not there on the day. We don't kind of see what he sees. That's the whole idea of this painting, is this is our portal to see what he sees. But I wonder how much of it was, hey, I had pink on the brush already. Where else can I use this? Which is, that's great. That's a great, instead of, getting the turpentine out or whatever and washing the brush again, can I use this and where can I use it? I think that's a pretty empowering thing because it adds some spice to it. It adds a little bit of variety, Another thing I wanted to bring up, if we want to talk about colors that sort of just emerge out of nowhere. So on the shadow, the cast shadow of the figure on the lower part under the figure, you're going to see like 4 main, I would say, tones or values or hues, whatever type of structure you want to talk about. But you're going to have that nice kind of burnt sienna orange. You're going to have like a raw umber, almost, it's probably some of the darkest stuff besides the crabgrass and maybe some of the shadow on the waves. You're going to see that dark really kind of mimic on that foot that's closer forward to us, right? And next to that, you're going to have, kind of the drop off between that color and the nice blue purple that you have for that wet sand. But take a look under that is green. Green? What? But it works because that same green is used on the stick. And then there's little nuances of some of the waves, some of the crest and crashing of the waves that also use some of that green. It's not everywhere, but what a master in seeing that, hey, there's some spots for this turquoisey, cyan. Actually, it's closer to turquoise. It's more green than it is blue. So how interesting that that's still usable, even in a place where it doesn't quite make sense. Because I know how I would be if I had this on my canvas and that the shadow parts weren't there yet for the figure. I know for a fact I would not have picked that orange, which I should have because it looks perfect. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would not have chosen that green. Not to say it's wrong. In fact, it's right. And that's the difference between a master painter and someone like me, who's a perpetual student. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't think of it. But that's why these type of studies are so important. And to really kind of dig in and look, you just start noticing thing after thing after thing after thing. And what's nice is I feel like I can hold a more valued conversation about this painting in particular, and maybe Soroya as a whole, after doing this hour-long study. So the whole intent of this is not to, learn mimicry. It's not necessarily to, oh, well, I'm going to figure out this style and now that's done. I'm going to, mission accomplished. What's next? Like, this is a constant learning mechanism. You can do this for every painting Soroya has ever done and learn all brand new things each and every time. Hell, you can do this same master study 6 months from now, the same sphere in the same place, and you're going to make different decisions. Because as you do these, you're going to start noticing more and more nuances that you haven't picked up before, because you're going to know what to look at. You're going to know what to look for and how to integrate it into your work. That's the goal of this. You want to see, like, why in the hell would he choose that green? Why would he do it? Like, that's the type of question that's going to keep you up at night. It's like, green? Like, I get the blues and there's the pinks and there's those purples and the nice purple, and then there's a little bit of the green. Sure, the water's like a bluish, yeah. But really it's more kind of a slate. Green? That's where things get interesting and exciting, at least for me, because it kind of doesn't make sense. Also, here's another thing that I noticed. I'm not sure what the perspective is on the figure and how is she marking. Her face is looking at kind of a down 45-degree angle, but if you follow where the marks are being made in relation to her feet, she's almost like popping her back because she has to turn on her hip and swivel to the side while her head is locked, kind of looking at the more bright white sand. But it's not something I would have noticed if I didn't really kind of start looking at this. I'm like, wait, that's an interesting pose. What is the angle that she's marking? It's not super important for like making a sphere and adding the shadow and stuff. But as you just start looking at these things, you're going to notice like, oh, that gesture doesn't quite make sense. The more I look at it, the more I'm like, that physically doesn't make sense. But once again, who cares? It doesn't matter. That's not the point of Soroya. That's not the point of what this is. This is the day on the beach. You can smell the salt in the water. You know what that wind coming off of that water feels like. You get it. You're there. Like, you can hear the seagulls. You know what I mean? Like, you're just transported there because of how good he's able to capture the mood and just the specific, almost like it's almost like the salt water is in the air around this. Like, everything has a hit of some of that nice kind of nuanced slate overtone. It's perfect. It's perfect. Which, once again, why the green? I can't figure it out. But you better believe I put it in there. I put it in there, man. No doubt. Man, but it's so much fun because you get to look at this and you really get to appreciate it on another level. And yeah, if you want to maybe make if a sphere is not your thing and you'd rather do like a rectangular prism or something, sure, go ahead. But the whole idea is make something simple that you can integrate into the piece that looks like the master made it. One of the main benefits of this, and especially if you're doing this digitally, I don't care what program you're using, but what's kind of nice about this is, let's say you're going to do a sketch study of like Karl Kapinski or Kim Jung-gi, or, you do a ink study of like Thomas Eliot or somebody. You're going to have to find the right brushes to get the right look. And that by itself, just that exercise of like, no, this pencil's a little too rough. No, this pencil's a little too fine. This one's a little too heavy charcoal, but what if I kind of lowered the opacity and did that? That's part of this as well. Really nailing down what the brushes do and how they react. You're going to get so much from that like you're going to essentially be making your own brushes. And there's a lot of power in that because you're going to know exactly how they work, exactly how they feel, what they're good for, what they're not good for. It's the same thing as having your favorite oil painting brush for 20 years. You know exactly what that brush is used for. Oh, this is perfect. It can be great for like a horsetail. It can be great for some leaves and some grass and foliage, but it's not so great for architecture. For my architecture stuff, I want to do this over here. Or I'm trying to do hard surface stuff, and maybe I'm making a car, a painting of a plane or a jet, and it has motion in it. So I'm going to use my hard surface brushes, but then I'm going to use that foliage brush for some nice like movement, for some nice, smudges, or, you're just going to know. You're going to get so accustomed to your own tools that you're going to improve anyway. Even if you feel like the time you spend on this, whether it's 1 hour, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever, you're going to get so many things from it that it's always worth it. And I think kind of getting out of your own way, just looking at what you have in front of you and trying your best to really understand it. It unlocks a part of your brain that is pretty critical, because if you're anything like me, if you start on a master study, a quote unquote master study, like if I were to do a full master study of this painting, I would probably get bored about 15 hours in, probably sooner than that. Not because it's a boring painting, not because it's a bad painting. In fact, it's one of my favorites of Sorolla, which is why I picked this one to do. But like, do I really want to be like, okay, well, what angle is I'm looking at, kind of the right side on the upper middle where the light sand is hitting the wet purple sand. And what angle is that line? Is that it's not a 45 degree angle. Is that a 42? You know what I mean? You start getting into this weird, like mathematician, proxy sort of like, oh, I'm going to be a Xerox copy machine. And welp, that's slightly a different angle, so I'm going to have to erase it and go back over it. Like, you're wasting time is what you're really doing. You think you're doing a master study, but you're really wasting time, because Sorolla already did this. He already solved this problem. You're not gonna fix something. And in fact, if it looks different, that means you didn't do your job well. You know what I mean? So like, what would you get out of this? Nothing really. Now, like I said in the intro, I do recommend doing it a few times, just so you can realize that a lot of times these type of master studies are a waste of time. Doing a brush for brush, stroke for stroke, exact replica remake, unless you're trying to sell a forgery, or you're literally working with an estate and they need you to do a reproduction copy of something, I don't see a ton of merit in it. Not to say that there's not any. You're going to learn a ton. But with this method, just getting a basic shape and integrating it in three-dimensionality inside of some of your favorite work, you're going to improve. You're going to get what you need out of it at a fraction of the time. You'll be able to do 30 of these exercises with 30 different artists in the time it takes you to do one quote-unquote real master study. And I would much rather you get that time trying different things and solving different problems, because your confidence is going to go through the roof, because you're going to know how to deal with stuff. If you run into a situation and the Sorolla study taught you, oh, this is how I can work with that bounce light. Yeah, that looks pretty good. You're more willing to try it because you've also tried 30 other things. And you have that as part of your repertoire, as part of your tool belt. And then the real power from this comes from doing, 200 of these. What you're going to end up with is your style. Style is something that people chase all the time. And I'm here to tell you, don't chase after it. It will find you. I'll put it this way. Whenever you started learning how to write handwriting, whether it's cursive, whether it was uppercase, lowercase, any of this other stuff, even if the person teaching you, let's say your grade school instructor or your primary school instructor, depending on where you're at, did they teach you exactly how to write the letter A? Or did they show you kind of the general idea and the shape and the method, and then your A still looked different than everyone else's A? Does that make sense? Like, that's what happens. Your handwriting is your handwriting. Your style is your style. You can't help but have your style. You can't help it. You can try to break it. You can try to learn a new style. But the best thing that you're going to be able to do is integrate things from other styles into your style, because a style is how we solve problems. And solving so many problems with this, you're going to get faster. You're going to get more confident. You're going to be able to use more tools. You're going to be able to use more programs. The sky's the limit on this stuff. And it only takes an hour. Hell, you could do this in 20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. In fact, learn how the wheel is made. Don't try to reinvent it. Like, the wheel is pretty good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So try this out. I had such a fun time on this. I'm already planning like 30 more of these, man. If you would like to see more of these, let me know. I love making videos like this because this is the type of art training that I wish I had before I got into art school. Because I think I'd be way better, and even after, 20 years, I'm way better now because now I understand sort of what I'm doing. And it doesn't mean I'm good at it. It doesn't mean that I know every part of it. It just knows, I just know that if I can open up a painting and look at why are the brush strokes going in this direction? Where's the bounce light? What are the shapes? What's the main color key? What's the overall idea? I know I'm going to get something pretty good, right? And then you can use these techniques. You can use what you've learned into your own paintings, into your own personal stuff. Oh, I would like this foliage. I like the way Soraya does this foliage on the beach. My next painting, why don't I just do the messy single stroke dotted foliage and just see what happens. So I don't know. It's a way to open up new avenues. It's a way to understand the masters, really admire and have reverence for those that came before you. Doesn't matter if they're old, pre-Renaissance or Raphaelite or whatever, or if they're still living and still with us. You're going to have such a better understanding of not only their technique, but your technique, that you can't help but go up. So yeah, have fun with this. Try it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to see any of the master studies you guys make. Please let me know. If you haven't already, of course, subscribe to the channel. If you like this type of stuff, leave in the comments what you would like to see. Would you like to see more master studies? Would you like to see a full-on master study? That might be like 4 or 5 videos worth of stuff, because man, oh man, those can get really in-depth, real hairy, real quick. But I appreciate you guys very much. So yeah, can't wait to hear what you think in the comments below. But until next time, go out there, do a cool master study, learn you something, and go be a better artist. You're already a good one. So go out there and be somebody. We'll see you next time.